Yeah. We're going to be meeting here with, we have Brittany Bear from OOD. She's going to be presenting to us tonight about their program and a little bit what's going on with them. COVID kind of put us all in a, I don't know what you want to call it, a whirlwind this last year, trying to figure out when we'd be live again, when we're going to be virtual. And as you can see, we're still doing a lot of stuff virtual. But she'll be talking about that. For those who didn't hear, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. We'll follow that, and I'll let Brittany address them, or we can address them at the end, but I'll let her decide when to answer all your questions. But feel free to stick them in the chat box. And again, we are recording tonight, so for your privacy, if you want to, for muting and taking off your video for privacy if need be. So for those who are just joining, my name is Patty Schramm. I'm with the SALT Talks program, and we have Brittany Bear tonight with OOD. So go ahead, Brittany. I'll let you take it from here.
Hi, everyone. So like she said, my name is Brittany Bear. I am a vocational counselor with Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, or OOD, here in Butler County. So my role is a transition counselor. So I work only with students ages 14 to 22, and then I would work with them after they've exited high school services when they're looking for a job. So I work with adults once they've exited school services, but my caseload is primarily all students in high school. We also have a lot of different counselors that we call general counselors, and they work with kind of everyone. They work with students, they work with adults, they kind of have everyone, everyone in the county that gets referred to us. And then I'll kind of give you guys a little bit of details about some of our other initiatives that we have and counselors that we work with a little bit later in the presentation. So that's just a little bit about me. Let's see here. So I am part of an initiative called the Ohio Transition Support Partnership, which is called OTSP. So that is a partnership with OOD and the Ohio Department of Education. So my initiative, they actually provide funding for my position specifically so that I am able to work and fund services for students who, like I said, are ages 14 to 22, enrolled in high school. So the biggest part of that is that I am more present in schools, and all of our OTSP counselors are more present in schools. So before COVID hit, I have an office at Butler Tech so that I'm a little bit closer to some of the students that I work with, and I'm able to work with their intervention specialists and kind of everyone at the school to make sure that we have more of a cohesive way to do things and make sure that all the planning that goes around the students is more involved to help them succeed. And then we do that in every school. We just don't have someone necessarily in the schools. So mine's at Butler Tech just because that's where all of the schools feed into a lot of times. But we have a presence at all of the schools: Hamilton, Lakota, Fairfield, Middletown. Again, before COVID hit, I was there multiple times a week at all of the schools. So it definitely helps with the cohesiveness and working with the whole team of the student. And like I said, it encourages partnership and collaboration. So we work very closely with all of the students' teams, the transition coordinators, IEP coordinators, the job coaches that are there. So that really helps. So we come to all the IEP meetings, the ETR meetings, as long as you guys want us there. And that just helps us to be able to, sorry, my daughter's in the background. That just helps us to really get to know the student and provide any of our expertise as well for the students so that we know what they need during the school year so that we can help provide what we can after they exit services or during the summertime when we can help them with like different programs and things like So like roles and responsibilities, I kind of touched upon this a little bit. So one of the biggest things is providing appropriate services, obviously. So some of these services that we have specifically for transition students are career exploration and pre-employment transition services. And what those are kind of like what I call stepping stones into if the student isn't sure what they want to do. They need some help with being transitioned into that world of work because they've never really been introduced to it. So career exploration by itself is just that. It is looking at what is out there in the community. If they don't really know, we provide career exploration so that they can just figure out what types of entry-level jobs are out there and things that they might be interested in and things that they're not going to be interested in. And then pre-employment transition services, I'll touch upon those a little bit later, but those again are stepping stones as well before we really start, and they can be used in conjunction as well, but that's just to help kind of navigate some of those soft skills that a student's going to need when they go into the world of work.
Brittany, I'm sorry. There's a question out there about the public schools, or do you go into private schools also?
Nope, we go into private schools. We just don't have as big of a presence, but they're absolutely able to refer students, and we work with them. I've had a few students from Baden on my caseload. I've had a few students from Summit. Lots of different private schools that we work with as well. Sorry, I'm not able to see the chat. I'm not sure why.
I think it's because your presentation's up, but that's fine. I'll watch them and let you know when a question pops up.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So then the summer youth work experience, that is kind of for transition, that's our biggest service, just because it's a lot of students and it takes a lot of planning. So our summer youth work experience, and again, I'll touch upon it a little bit later as well, but that is during the summer months, and that's a really good way for a student to learn the world of work before really going into a job, like a summer job. And then we also have non-permanent job development. So non-permanent job development it's looking for a job in like a competitive job in the community, but it's just part-time or over the summer. So that's what, a typical high school student would get if they are going, if they're looking for a job in the community. So that's what non-permanent job development means. And then another thing that we do is assist with determining realistic job goals. So I have a lot of students that come in and say that they want to be a professional video gamer. So we tend to help them, not crush their dreams, but try to figure out what is going to be best for them to meet their needs and their wants, but also what they're really going to be good at. So that's a big thing that all counselors do, is we try to figure out what the student is going to really enjoy doing, but also be good at. So we take their weaknesses, their strengths, their interests, and kind of figure that out from there. We don't have to figure that out right away. That's more for down the road when we're looking for more of the permanent job after they've exited school services. But that's definitely something that we look at and kind of have that conversation early on to make sure that a student's not coming in with an expectation that they're going to be, an astronaut or something like that if it's not really in the cards for them. We try to have those conversations early on. And then we also assist with determining necessary services. So like I said, we, all of the services that we provide, those are conversation pieces that we have with the families. So if they need certain accommodations on the job, and we really try to figure out what's best for the student. So not every student's plan with OOD is going to be the same. They might go straight into looking for a job because they have a little bit of experience doing some work, before they even got to OOD. Or they might start with career exploration and work their way up. It's really just dependent on the student, and we really try to individualize everything. Same with accommodations. So one student might need a task list, where another student might need just reminders on the job and some natural resources. It's really just going to depend on the student. And then we also provide rehab tech if needed. We kind of go through that process, but there are rehab tech options available should any student need that for on the job. And like I said before, we attend IEP and ETR meetings to make sure that we're collaborating with the team. And when I say the team, I mean us, the student, the family, if they have DD, with the school, if they have any mental health services. We try to make sure that the team is heavily involved, kind of like wraparound services, just so that everyone involved knows what's going on and we can all kind of brainstorm and make sure that we're providing the best services possible for the student.
There's another question out there, Brittany. They're asking, do other counties have similar people doing OOD? So doing this, so.
Yep, every single county has someone like me and my team doing all of these types of services. So I'm a state agency, so we are in every county in Ohio. And then if you guys, if you are from a different county and you guys need specific contacts for which county you're in, I probably will not have that information right in front of me just because I don't know specific contacts, but I can get that to Patty and she can relay it to you if you like. So then pre-employment transition services. Again, I touched on these just to introduce them a little bit, but what these are, so we have something called potentially eligible students. So you can, these are for students that are already open with OOD and are at least 14 years old, because we can't work with anyone that's younger than 14. And that they need a service. But we also have potentially eligible students. So pre-employment transition services are really good for those potentially eligible students, and that's a different type of referral, which if the student isn't really ready for anything permanent, if that makes sense. So if you don't really know if they're ready to kind of dip into some of the summer youth services or looking for a job or anything like that, potentially eligible services is what you would get for with the pre-employment transition services. So the current pre-employment transition services that we have are Introduction to Self-Advocacy, which is a big one. And I think every teenager everywhere should have it anyways. And that just helps them find their voice, so that when they are in a situation where they may not have mom and dad, they may not have a coach, they may not have their school system with them. So say they're on a job and they don't have a job coach with them anymore, the self-advocacy skills help them to voice, hey, I don't understand what I need to do. Can you please re-explain this, or can you please help me? So it really helps them with that communication piece that they're going to need when they're a little bit more independent looking for a job. And it'll really help just in general, I think. The self-advocacy is going to be really good to help with that communication piece. Workplace readiness training is just that. It is kind of figuring out what is, what you're going to need on the job. Any type of job skills that you're going to need. A lot of times they might go out to different jobs. Again, before COVID hit, that's what they were doing. I don't know, a lot of them are virtual right now, but they look at videos, they kind of figure out, okay, so when, for this type of job for stocking, these are the skills that I'm going to need. How am I going to be able to do those skills in order to get this type of job? And then job exploration counseling, again, that's very similar. That's just like, it's basically career exploration. It is what is out there in the community. What are these types of jobs that I could be looking at that might interest me? Counseling on post-secondary. So if your student is interested and able to go into post-secondary education, or that's something that's in the cards for you, that is definitely a good one to seek, because that will help them understand what it's going to take to get into college and to be in college, because it's really a whole different world than high school. So it's really good for them to kind of get a glimpse into that. And then work-based learning, that's very similar to workplace readiness training. It's basically just learning, again, the soft skills that they're going to need on the job. So the pre-employment transition services are either 4 weeks or 8 weeks, just depending on the service. And right now, the majority of them are virtual. So they could be in groups of 4 with like a job coach, and they'd be learning the skills that I explained. Some providers are coming into schools if the schools are letting them. So it just kind of depends on the provider and the school where these services would take place right now, just because of the world we're living in.
You do have another question out there. Do you need to be referred to OOD in the IEP, or can we contact you directly?
Either way. So I will actually touch upon that. So I will have my contact info, and I will also, we actually have a website that you can refer yourself if you want to, or if you want to go through your school or DD coordinator, they can do that as well. All right, so summer youth work experience. Like I said, this is probably our biggest service specifically for transition, because we refer a lot of students for this. I think this year we're about 80 just in Butler County. So we refer a lot of students for summer youth work experience. It is a 5-week paid experience. They do get paid minimum wage. And it just depends on the provider that they utilize, whether they work 5 days a week or 4 days a week. And they would work 20 hours a week. So those that are doing 4 days a week would work a 5-hour shift with a 30-minute lunch. And they, like I said, they work in groups of 4 with a job coach, so they're not alone. And it's kind of like a work study program just in the community. They do a lot of different things. So I put some of the sites that we've had in the past from a specific provider. We're invited back to some of them this year. Some we weren't. Just, I mean, again, just because of the world we live in, it just depends on the employer's comfort level and their availability for us. But some of the sites are Wetherington Country Club, Eli's Bar and Grill, the Butler County RTA, Bargain Hunt, Tractor Supply. And that Tractor Supply is, we have multiple Tractor Supply sites that we've been invited to, which is awesome. And similar to the YMCA, we have multiple YMCAs in Butler County. So this year, I don't believe we have any, but in the past we had both East Butler and downtown Hamilton YMCA. So those are just a few of the sites in Butler County specifically that we've been invited to work in. They do things like stocking, cleaning. At Eli's Sports Bar, they kind of help get ready for the day before Eli's opens up. And I know that sometimes in the past they've been able to do some food prep at Eli's. So, you know, some really cool things that they get to do.
There's another question out here too, Brittany. The job sites that are listed, what provider is this through? Butler Behavioral, Easter Seals, Goodwill?
Yeah. So this one specifically is Butler Behavioral. They're one of our bigger providers for summer youth. Easter Seals Tri-State has done, provides usually one of the YMCAs. YMCA just wasn't inviting us back this year just because of COVID, but the YMCA has both Butler Behavioral and Easter Seals. Yeah.
And then there's another one just after that. If we find our own job, can you help with the transition?
We can. So I did not include that. That's a good question. So if the student finds their own job out in the community and you think that they're going to need some help with either a job coach or someone just to kind of help advocate for them a little bit and help them adjust, we can help provide job coaching. So it can be on-site job coaching, or it can be off-site, just depending on the comfort level of the student and the employer, obviously. But yes, that's definitely something we can do.
And then there's one more that just popped in. I have tried to find out the sites for Easter seals, but can't find a list. Will a student go to more than one site or just on the site's form from the provider? Have you ever tried Topgolf?
I believe Topgolf was in question a few years back, and they just weren't able to accommodate us. And then just as far as Easter seal sites, we do not have any just yet for Butler or for Easter seals this year in Butler County. We're hoping to get a few, but we don't have any just yet. So we don't have any control of that. That's based on the provider, so Easter seals and the employers. It was pretty hard for our providers this year. I hope that answers your question. And then you mentioned something about being able to do a different one. So if you choose, say you chose to do, I'm just going to take the top one, Weatherington Country Club with Butler Behavioral for the summer, that would be the only one that you can do for that summer. And then if the student needed a second summer youth, then we could talk about doing a different site for the second summer. So hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it looks like it did.
Awesome. All right. Non-permanent job development. So like I said, this is based on, so non-permanent job development is that piece of looking for a job out in the community, like any typical student would, just with a little extra help. So they would work with a job developer, with a provider out in our community. We have some really good providers in Butler County, and the job developer would help them find part-time work or full-time work if they're capable of it. But they would help them develop a resume, apply for positions in the community. They'd help them practice interview skills. And if the student is comfortable and needs it, then they would also attend the interview with them. I always highly recommend that the job developer is involved in the interview, just because they can help with that advocation piece for the student. And then they can really work with the employer to make sure the employer is understanding the student, and vice versa, the student's understanding the employer. So it's always really good if they have a job developer to have that job developer in interviews. And like I said earlier, the employment can be temporary for like a summer job, or if they want to, we can do, it doesn't have to just be during the summertime. If you wanted to start looking for a job in October for just a part-time job while you're in high school, we can do that as well. But that's definitely something. So all of the services I talk about are things that you would want to talk to your counselor about. So it's just a way of seeing whether or not the student's ready for it, and what would be a good fit for them. And job coaching is available to help those students learn their job tasks. Like I said, advocating for themselves, and then developing the relationships and natural resources on the job. So that could be with the employer, that could be with the coworkers that they have, someone that's going to be a good go-to person for the student, so that when they are on the job site without a job coach, they know who to turn to and who can help them a little bit. So developing those good natural resources is a big thing for us.
There is another question. Does the pay come from OOD or the employer?
OOD. So, well, kind of. So we fund the program. So we would obviously make sure that the paychecks get funded, and then the employer specifically doesn't pay them. It goes through whatever provider you use, and they pay you, if that makes sense. So so say you were using Butler Behavioral, we would make sure that Butler Behavioral had the money to pay the student their paycheck. But the employer doesn't. They get some good work over the summer. So how to get referred for services. So You can ask your IEP teacher, you can ask your DD coordinator, you can send an application straight to me. All of our transition referrals come straight to me. There's my email and my phone number. Or you can also create an online account at OOD Works, which is such an underutilized service. So I have it in the PowerPoint, but what I'm going to do is see if I can switch to the actual website, and I'll show you what it looks like. So this is what OOD looks like, and anyone with an email address and password, and they would make a password, they can create an account. So this isn't just to refer. This is actually, if you already have OOD services, you can create this online account so that if your counselor asks you, hey, do you happen to have those school records for us, or any medical, like the medical documents I need, then you can actually just, instead of having to email your counselor, you can actually just go in and pop them into your case that way. So it's a very cool service that's so underutilized. So let's go ahead and see, there we go. So this is the website, OOD Works. So we'll go to the home page here, and there's some nifty tools here. So step 1, so we'll go down, and it explains what Voc Rehab is. So that's kind of what I've already talked about, but they also have a little video on there, about a 2-3 minute video that explains OOD services. And then if you aren't sure whether or not your student needs to be involved in OOD, or if they're appropriate, you can take the assessment. So we'll go ahead and click on it just to show you guys. And it's just a quick 5-question quiz just to see, you know, whether or not you think that they would qualify. And it is any student that has a disability that needs services in school or needs services on the job and wants to work, because we can't help someone that doesn't really want to work. That's pretty much all we need to make sure that they're eligible for services. And obviously a documented disability. So if they're in an IEP ETR, that qualifies them. And then the third step is getting a profile and applying for services. So if you go here, you can, like I said, if you already have a case, you can sign up to be able to drop anything that you need to into your OOD case. If you want to apply for services, you can sign up there. And then if you already have an account, that's where you go to do that. So it's a really good tool to use. So if you don't want to go that route, you don't have to. You can easily just email me or have your whoever your support coordinator or intervention specialist, you can have them do that as well. But there's a lot of good resources on here. It has, you know, what to expect. So I'm actually going to explain some of these things, but what to expect during the application process, how it all works, the flow, some different paperwork. There's some frequently asked questions, what the benefit is of working with us. So, and then there's a lot of, so the frequently asked questions is good because this is some of the questions that we get that a lot of families just don't know. So these are really good to have as well. And then contacting us, this actually has all of the different offices available. So if you are in Darke County or Warren County, Preble, Montgomery, and it actually lists down here which office you would need to contact to get involved with services. So Southwest here is Cincinnati and Dayton. You could call either number, you'd get who you need to, and they have which counties they serve. So very good tool to utilize. If you're already set up with OOD, I highly recommend it. All right.
There was another question here, Brittany. It says, can we use OOD services post high school up to through the age of 22?
Oh, absolutely. So we have general counselors who work with all different populations. So not just students, they work with adults as well. When I was a general counselor, I used to be before I became a transition counselor. When I was a general counselor, I think the oldest I worked with was 75. So anyone that has a disability that is wanting a job that needs our help can apply for services. Right. Oops. There we go. All right. So how the case flow works, and this is just kind of the quick way of saying it. So once we get a referral, we would schedule an intake with you. So it just depends on who you'd be going through. So if it comes through me and I'm keeping the case, then I specifically would reach back out to you to make sure that we schedule an intake. And the intake is filling out all of the paperwork. And then it's also getting to know the student and the family a little bit. Some of the things like strengths and weaknesses and how their disability impacts them, as well as just their home life, their interests, really just getting to know the student well. Once we complete the intake, then we go through the eligibility process. And like I said, the 3 things that they need to be eligible are that they have a documented disability, that they need services in order to find and keep a job, and that they want to work. Because like I said, if they don't want to work, it's going to be very hard to get them a job and keep a job. And then once we've made them eligible, I should say the eligibility process. So the way we make someone eligible is by not only the information that we get from the intake, but we also need documentation of the disability. So an IEP and ETR count towards that documentation. If you have a Fed form from Butler County DD, that qualifies as well. And we can do that legwork for you. Unless you have it available, like readily available, then that'll make things a lot quicker. But we can request records from your school and or DD so that we can get that process moving. So then once we make the student eligible, we'll contact you guys again for a planning meeting. And the planning meeting is just basically putting, okay, so what type of job goal are we interested in, and what type of job goal might be appropriate for you? A lot of our plans for students are, just entry level jobs that they might be interested in. So stocking, cleaning, I have a lot of people that want to do childcare or animal care, things like that. So a lot of those entry level positions that they might be interested in, and that's just until they figure out what they want to do down the road. So when we're really getting into looking for more of their long-term job, then that job goal would probably change, or it may not, just depending on what their interests are at the time. But then we also put the plan, we put appropriate services. And what I say appropriate because, like I said earlier, not every student's case is going to be exactly the same. We individualize every plan. So while one student may come in and they already have a job, but they may need some coaching, we'll just put coaching on the plan and kind of some of the services that we're going to need to help them work towards that job goal. Or they may come in not knowing anything about jobs, and we'll do everything. We'll do pre-ETS, we'll do career exploration, we'll do the summer youth program, we'll kind of do everything. So no plan's going to look the same, and it's really going to be just based on the needs of each individual student. And then we provide services while they're in school, and then we also provide long-term job development. Long-term job development, and I say long-term because that's looking for your long-term goal. So after they've exited school services, we would help them find that long-term job goal, and then we would provide coaching during that time if they need it. And then closure is once they've received job coaching and they really are kind of doing everything without a job coach there. They know all their tasks, they know who to ask if they need something. We consider them stable, which just means that they don't need our help anymore. So At that point, then we would move forward with case closure. And then if funding obviously is available, then Butler County DD would be able to, we'd work with that team to see what services would be able to be available for that. So yeah, that's just a quick overview of and how a case would work for a student.
There's another question here, Brittany. We are already part of OOD and did the career exploration program. We are wanting to participate in the summer youth program.
Okay.
Are you saying we can update information on the website? For example, put in our request to work with Butler Behavior.
So that would go specifically through your counselor. So whoever your counselor is, I would reach out to them via email or phone call and just say, hey, you know, what's going on as far as summer youth? We'd love to get, you know, your student involved in that. So I would specifically reach out to your counselor. It'll be a little bit quicker.
And how long would you provide job coaching if warranted? Weeks, months, years?
Not years, but definitely weeks and months, just depending on the needs. So we usually do things a month at a time, so probably at least a month. I have had some individuals that needed no coaching at all, and we just kind of did some follow-along services for 3 months and then closed his case. I have had some that have been 6-7 months of coaching, and then we kind of start fading out and going into that follow along piece. So really just based on the needs of the student. There's no specific timeline, but by 6 months, we really start talking about being able to fade out a little bit. All right. So this here is just contacts in Butler County. So my supervisor is Darke Cruz. She is wonderful. We have Chris Smith, who is our caseload assistant. So he actually helps me a lot with referrals. So he is the person that all other referrals go to. So like adult cases. But he helps me with transition referrals a lot. So he and I work very closely together. Our general counselors are Sarah Stanitz, Renee Johnson, Tabby Hall, and Sarah Carmella. So if you aren't working with me and you have an open case, you may be working with one of these 4 ladies. They are wonderful as well. And like I said, they do transition as well as adult cases. Then there's me, who works with OTSP. Employment First is Gretchen Steinkamp. We have a mental health and addiction recovery services board that we work in conjunction with, and that's Casey Barr. And then we also have Jobs for Recovery, which our counselor is Erin Crawford. And then we also have Jalen Esther, who is the caseload assistant for that. So those are our contacts in Butler County. Just depending on the needs of who we're working with, they may get assigned to anyone there. And then that's the end of my presentation. What other questions do we have?
So far, I don't see any more. Oh, wait a minute. There is one right here. We live in Butler County, but child goes to school in Hamilton County. We were assigned a Hamilton County rep, wondered if we should actually be assigned to a Butler County rep.
That's always a hard question that I can never specifically remember the answer to. And I think that it is easier to utilize your Hamilton County rep just because they're based on, they have specific counselors for specific schools. So if that makes sense. So they have, you know, a counselor that works specifically with Princeton schools and you know, so on. So it might be easier for now to continue working with the current counselor that you have. But if it's a concern, you can always bring it up to the counselor.
She's asking to ask, yeah, you can, Susan, you can unmute if you'd like. We are recording, just to keep in mind that, but that's okay.
I thought this would be easier. I hope that's okay.
Yeah.
So I'm the one that my child lives in Butler County. We go to a small private school in Hamilton. So it's not like there's a huge consensus of, not a large, you know, 1,000 person school. but it is a special needs school. So
Okay.
the reason I was asking that is we've had good relationships with the Hamilton County rep, but yet anything she's aware of is probably more for Hamilton County services. And we're actually further north, and we'd like the services to be in Butler County. So I feel like she's always going to the Butler County to have to, should we cut out that middle person? I guess that's where my question came from. Not to go over her head because she's trying to be as local as she can, but like Butler Behavioral, I wasn't aware of all those. I've been trying to find out Easter Seals and what work sites. She's actually been out of the office, so I haven't gotten a response, and I'm worried we're going to lose our spot. So I guess I was actually going to shoot you an email with her and just kind of do that, but I wasn't sure if you had knowledge right now you could share.
I don't know specifically because that's usually a supervisor call. So I would definitely reach out to her and see what her thoughts are. And and you said she's out of the office, but yeah, any summer youth questions? Have you guys haven't gotten anything yet just because of you don't know what's available yet?
Well, we were told Goodwill would only be within Goodwill stores, and we wanted other options. And then we were told Easter Seals was still figuring out their job size, which I haven't heard that. And so we're kind of thinking we need to get this taken care of. So we're just going to go with Butler Behavioral, which is fine because they did the summer exploration last year and did great, even online. I mean, amazingly, after being thrown that curveball.
Yep.
So, but I just want to make sure that moves forward. So I might be copying you on an email to our current rep, and then that way everybody's kind of on the same page. I don't want to step on somebody's toes, but I just want to make sure I do what I'm supposed to do. And then when you were showing the website, that you said we could do some things on there. So like requesting the service we want, that's not part of that, right? That's really going through the representative.
Yeah, that would definitely just be a conversation to have. The portal's really for being able to drop things in cases, or if they need something for you to sign, I believe that they'll be able to, the counselor can use that as well. I underutilize it too, so I am not super fully aware of how to work it just yet, but it's very awesome. And I definitely want to start using it more. So, but it's more for any documents, things like that.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to just go ahead and hit stop recording. If anybody has some more questions, go ahead and do that. And